everybody. And if you're just joining us, you're listening live to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. If you've never been to the show before, I'll let you know a little bit about it. But if you are a returning viewer, supporter, we do have those. Thank you so much for listening. You're listening in on 107.7 in New Orleans, Louisiana. We do hit quite a few countries across the world. I know even with our archives. But we are live on YouTube. You can watch the show. That's where the chat room is. I'll keep an eye on it. I'd love to have you come over there because I got a great guest for you tonight. He's a good friend of mine, Gavin Lee Davies, and he was on here recently talking about his own book. He's from Wales and over in the UK, and he's been handing me over these wonderful guests, and she's one of them tonight. But I said I'd tell you a little bit about the show. My show here is that I cover all areas, I say, of the paranormal. And that's not just ghosty stuff. I cover anything that is not within the norm, whether you see it in the media or regular in life. And I have regular everyday people on my show that are doing amazing things through the work that they're doing to make a positive change for humanity. And this guest definitely is one of those. Myself, I'm a Canadian. I am a psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer. I'm an Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. So tonight, I'm going to read her distinguished bio to you, and then I will introduce you formally. Her name is Susan J. Plunket, and I need to find her bio, which I just had here. Give me a sec, Susan. Never fails, right, when you're ready? Okay, so Susan Plunket is a writer and a psychologist in private practice in New York City. She received her doctorate at the New School for Social Research in 1989. Her first book, When Every Breath Becomes a Prayer, reflects her interest in Jungian, or some people say Jungian, dream analysis, and people who have had an experience of the numinous as a result of emotional pain. Her new book, which I started and I could not put down from first page, Mission from Venus, pushes further into the fantasy worlds of the fifth and sixth dimensions. She lives with her family in Greenwich Village, and she said, unfortunately, still in the third dimension. That's what Gavin added for you. Welcome, Susan. I'm so glad that you're here tonight.
Oh, thank you, Lorilei. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm delighted you're here. He sent me your bio, and I don't always check my email. And Facebook's usually the best place to get a hold of me. And something told me, Spirit, I thought, Gavin's sending me people. And I looked, sure, there were two people, and you were not. I'm so glad you could come on first. So this book you got out there, well, first, I don't even know where to start. Like, what got you, first of all, into what your day job, if you will, because you graduated in 1989.
Right. My day job is as a psychologist. Mm-hmm. And I was working as a used car salesperson.
Wow.
Berkeley Dotson.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, I'd been a waitress, a teacher. I used to teach English in a high school in upstate New York. But at this time, I was living in Berkeley, California.
Okay.
Berkeley Dotson. And I thought, this isn't where I belong. This isn't where I belong. And I had friends to Berkeley. And I thought, I should become a psychologist. It was just an intuition or premonition. And so I picked up the telephone, and we just used telephones. And I called the New School for Social Research in New York City because I knew that I could apply there without an undergraduate degree in psychology. And usually you have to have an undergraduate degree in psychology.
Yes.
And I got in, and I left Berkeley, and I came to New York, and I started school, and then I became a psychologist. It was just intuition.
That is amazing, because how many people, I have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So up here we call it university. Some people call it college in the United States. I want to give a shout out to Zach Mann, by the way. He's in the chat in YouTube on our UPRN channel. He's one of our regular supporters for our YouTube channel. I want to remind people that when you go to UPRN, actually, you can find out more information on how to support the network, but you also get a lot of extra content. I believe we have between between 40 and 50 different hosts on this network. There's people that are providing some extra classes, some extra interviews that you won't see on the regular network. There's all kinds of things. So be sure to check that out. So Zach, thank you always for being here, supporting me, especially my shows and the network. He asks great questions too. So I know he's going to have a lot of great ones. But I understand that because I had to take a lot of psychology courses for my degree in nursing. And you're absolutely right. Normally, to get a doctorate, you've got to have some kind of undergraduate degree, right?
But the new school was based on a different system. So they let you in, and then they just throw you out if you don't keep up.
Okay, so you've got to have it. But the
So
main thing I wanted to say is I worked in palliative care, okay? And I always say I've been so blessed in the beginning of my career. I'm off permanently with a serious back injury, but I still maintain my license and stay on top of things. So in the beginning, I worked in the NICU and in labor and delivery, maternal newborn. So I always say I've been so undeniably blessed to be there at the beginning of life. But where I think I learned a lot was working in one of the most dangerous parts of the city in community nursing with the most low income people. Almost didn't take the job, and I'm so grateful I did. But it's working in palliative care, and you meet all these people that, especially when they have a terminal illness, they have time to think about these things, right? And at the end, I swear to God, almost 90% of people always had regrets, things they dreamt of doing that they never did, people, places they never went. They were always waiting till there was enough money, until they finally did this, they did that. And look at you. You said, hey, I'm going to do this. And you did it. So congratulations.
Thanks.
So no regrets, right?
No regrets on that score.
Mm-hmm.
But who doesn't have some regrets? Relationship regrets, foolish things we do when we're young.
You know what I always say, though, and I do teach this, I try to live this, is I say embrace it all, because it's made you the incredible person you are today. All the scars, all the wounds, all the hurt, all the happiness, all of it, it's all made you who you are today. Plus the lessons we learn, right?
True. That is very true.
So now, how did you get into writing? Because I'm not kidding. I didn't realize that Gavin had sent me, and I should have known because he makes my job so easy. He gives us topics to discuss. There's been people, a few of the people that he's introduced me to, we've just met through email, and it's so easy to have a conversation. So how did you get into this? Because your book, like I was going to say quickly, from the first 3 lines, I was like, oh my God, I'm hooked. I can put this down.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I didn't really think it was the kind of a book that could actually hook people. But before I tell you that, I just have to say, I love Gavin. I've never met him in person, even though he's been my publicist for 2.5 years. He's so positive. He's like the most positive guy, and he deals with, as you know from having him on, the most heavy subjects, the most heavy, scary subjects. But that said, a shout out to Gavin with his new book, Harvest. Whoa, about alien abduction. It was, I couldn't sleep the night I read that book. I just read the whole book and I was like, wow. Because
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I have a little bit of a delay with Skype, so I apologize if I end up. Most people know that watch this show. I don't know if it's being up in Canada or what it is, but I apologize. Go ahead.
Because my view of the universe, in Mission from Venus and The Wanderers on Earth, is so different from what happened in Harvest. So to answer your question, how did I start doing this? Well, kicking and screaming is the short answer. All my life, I've gone to visit intuitives, psychics, channelers, healers, always, since a teen. And I kept getting the message, you're to write. Your guides are telling us, you're to write, you're to write. And I think I was fearful of channeling the dark side. How am I going to control that, and what's going to happen? So in 2010, one channel said, you're a channel. Open up your channel. It's going to be fine. Surround yourself with protection. Ask for what you want. You can decide who to let through. So, but I didn't do it. But then in 2015, Cindy Dale, who's a
I love her. I'm a medical intuitive as well.
Yeah.
Not as good at, we were just talking about this with a fellow light worker. Both of us are, but we said compared to her or Ina Segal, no, we're not way up there, but we could still, if you have to use that gift.
Anybody
But go
who's
ahead.
helps a friend. So Cindy said to me, Susan, it's 1 degree in Minnesota. And they're telling me, just open up that channel and write. It'll come through. It'll come through. So that's when I started in 2015 with the first book, because only really, and I have Cindy to thank. And then she was great. She wrote a blurb for the back of that book, and she's been great. She read it and she helped me, And then the shaman who I work with in Australia, who's the daughter of an Australian Aborigine, said to me, that was good. That was good. You wrote that book, but that was just to teach yourself how to write. There's a trilogy coming through from the formless realm. You got to write this trilogy. I was like, really? Really? I thought I did it. I wrote this book. Nope, trilogy. So Mission from Venus, it's the first book in the trilogy. It came out last year. Wanderers on Earth is the second book in the trilogy. It came out last week, January 1st. And
congratulations.
I'm finally writing the third book. And I don't know what I'm calling it yet. But
yeah, but sometimes that can come after. I'm going to share something with you. Now, I know why Gavin put us together. I met Gavin through a mutual friend. His name is Jason Bland. He does Paranormal Soup.
Yeah, I've been on with him last year for the other book.
Okay. I might have missed that one. I haven't been at attend. I used to attend every Sunday, but there's a reason why. The house that I lived in was so extremely haunted. Like my partner, who was just on thrown 15 feet, bit, scratched, burnt. I was visited by something that identified to be demonic. That dream happened probably 14, 15 years ago. It's like it was 20 minutes ago. It gave me its name, this spelling, and its animal form. It tried to offer me riches and wealth. And in my dream, I can't say it's not radio friendly, but I told it where to go. And then it was very mockingly shaking its finger at me. And this was a man in a tree in my old yard, in my house, old house.
Did you?
What's that?
Did you move out?
Through certain circumstances, it didn't seem great. And I was talking to a fellow friend of mine that does a lot of law of attraction. She said, why don't you look at this as a gift? And we did. Lost a lot in it, but where I am right now, so much happier. But what I'm going to tell you is this guy, oh, no, 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 no. Every time you see a crow, you'll know exactly who you are. And all hell broke loose. We've shared our story on Paranormal Survivor. It is a crazy story. I'm writing 3 books, but you're talking about dealing with dark things. I keep telling the spirit, I don't want to deal with dark things. That's people that come to me. I have seen people possessed on camera, levitate, completely change, like all kinds of crazy, crazy, dark things. And you're talking about the fear. I get it. I get it.
Wow.
So what helped you like to sort of move past that fear? Because I'm writing 3 books as well.
Yeah.
And the one I never make New Year's resolutions, but this year it's getting written, one of them. That is my mission by the end of the year. I have all the outlines. So I hear you about the fear when you're not a writer. And so how'd you get over all this, like with what you're working with?
I think it was Cindy Dale who was the biggest pusher and supporter. Just got me over the hump. I said, okay, stop fighting this. You keep hearing this year after year. Stop fighting it. Because she said, look, just sit down. Just sit down, because both my father and my sister have transitioned. She said, but your father and your sister are right there. I see your father in a white shirt rolling up his sleeves. They want to support you. There are beings in the formless realm that you used to sit in council with. They have stories. There's a chrysalis in your psyche. It will unfold and the stories will come out. Just sit down. So, and then Carrie Henwood, the shaman. It was really other women. It was women. It was the support and urging and encouragement of the women that I sought help from. I think it's a great big chain. Like I help the patients who come to me, as you do, and other women help me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful because we're all in it together. We're all cells of one huge organism. We are all God. We are all divine, dark and light.
And
Even
it's
the
hard.
dark side serves the divine in its own way.
And it's so hard when you run into somebody that really pushes your buttons, and you got to remember that unconditional love, that there's a message in there, right?
Did
When
you
they're,
get the message?
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, there's a message. Well, I get along with most people, but I'm saying that, like sort of what I've been speaking about is I've never seen this world so fractured when it comes to family, when it comes to friends, when it comes to fear, anxiety, depression. So many people are choosing to leave by their own hand.
Yeah.
And I've been saying that, you know what, I have a son with severe autism, my youngest. And, he's no problem now. He'll always be living with us, and with no disrespect at that precocious 5 to 7 year old age. And but there were times when it was rough when he was little, and wasn't aware of my gifts at that time. But something came to me one day when all I could do was hold him. It had been 3 hours of raging, and I had to stay calm. And I got this message, and I still use it every day, and I share it many times on the show. And what it was is, if it doesn't make any difference 10 years from now, let alone 10 minutes from now, let
Right.
it go and pick your battles.
Right.
And this is exactly what I'm saying to people is, you know what, 10 years from now, this isn't going to make any difference.
Right.
And you're not even going to remember why you weren't speaking. If you can just agree to put your differences aside, agree to disagree, exactly what you're saying. We are all part of humanity. We're all part of each other, and we're stronger together than we are divided. Mm-hmm.
And we're all part of God.
Absolutely.
We're the same stuff, whether it's the stars or the planet or us.
I hear you. I
Yeah.
do want to give a shout out. We've got Shady D here. She's another big supporter of our show, so thank you. We've got Shannon Casey. She's actually from my city. I live in a city called Thunder Bay, which is about 35 minutes away from the Minnesota border. We're about 6 hours north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So she follows our show. So who knows who else will pop in here? So they may ask some questions. They do, and I try to always involve people when they come to the show live, because I don't know about you, but whenever I've gone to a live and somebody's got comments going and they just ignore them, it's like, why am I here? So I appreciate that. But I've got lots of things here that Gavin's asked, and one that's really glaring at me. What is a wanderer?
Oh, right. A wanderer is a being from a different dimension,
Hmm?
a higher dimension, who has volunteered to incarnate on Earth in a human body as a human in order to help humanity get the message that we are all one and that we are all moving into higher dimensions along with the planet, and that the path of advancement up through the dimensions is service to others. Whether you do it as a nurse, a mother, a friend, helping someone across the street, uh, however you do it, that's the path of advancement. And the wanderers came in mass, are, I believe, in truth, are here about 80,000 of them, 80 million of them right now on Earth,
I agree.
come to help us transition to the next dimension, where Earth has already moved into the fourth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So the wanderers want us to hold enough violet light so that as many humans can transition with them as possible. And so we humans need to get the message: service, service, service.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize the unity of all beings and help one another, love one another. Just think of us all as one organism, and that
Mm-hmm.
organism includes the stars and the moon and the sun and the planets and all the galaxies. It's all, everything is the divine.
Mm-hmm.
So work against any part of it. So
Go
So
ahead.
the wanderers in my book, the wanderers on Earth, are coming from the fifth dimension, and they have to incarnate as human because of the laws surrounding incarnation on Earth. You're not supposed to slip through the quarantine and just come here as an extraterrestrial or a higher dimensional being, because, and this is the only planet in any galaxy, I am told, that has a quarantine. But some beings do slip through, although they're not supposed to. But the wanderers did it legally. They were born as infants and they grow up and they pass through the veil of forgetting, so they don't know they're wanderers. Mm-hmm. Lorilei, you could be a wanderer.
I have so many questions for you right now, and I'm just waiting for a pause. I've got so many, not what Galvin's asked, just what you've said. Because, what you're saying to me, I want to know more about this quarantine. I work with the violet light, but I work with Saint Germain. I want to know more about this violet light. Plus, we're hearing this catchphrase, if you will, light worker. Now, are they synonymous? And the interesting part I'm going to add also, Joe Montaldo actually does great research with extraterrestrials, with human beings that have been visited. He runs the International Center for Alien Research. So he's got a whole bunch of stuff about this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I just asked you.
The wanderers that I have been told about are incarnate as human. They are born as human infants and they grow up. But because they pass through the veil of forgetting, they don't know that they are here from the fifth dimension. They don't know that they're wanderers. They know there's something different about them. Yes. But eventually, their job is to wake up in the heaviness of the third dimension, remember that they wandered down here from the fifth dimension, and that they are on a mission to help humanity. And many wanderers do wake up, but even if they don't wake up, they're still helpful because of their energy and because they do hold the violet ray of Saint Germain. That is the violet ray I'm talking about. In order to get to the fourth dimension, the information I've received is that you have to hold a certain amount of violet light. And and Saint Germain is the kohan of the violet ray of transmutation. So he's a character in both books, Mission from Venus and Wanderers on Earth, as are the other kohans of the light rays. So what I mean by, you asked me about the quarantine.
Yes, that's super curious to me.
Because there had been interference on Earth, and the Council of Nine had said, when Earth was seeded in several different ways, that there should be no interference, that this was an experiment to see if these beings could find their way back to source without outside interference other than humans incarnating. However, when Mars destroyed its atmosphere in nuclear war, Martians were all killed and in their light bodies, but they were third dimensional beings like Earth. Earth was near, so the council decided that those beings should be moved to Earth to continue, because Earth was a third dimensional planet. They needed a third dimensional home to have their third dimensional experience to go on growing. So they were brought here, but they were thought by the council to be too warlike since they had just destroyed their atmosphere. So they were genetically altered to be less warlike. And then the cry went out, you have messed up the experiment, you have altered, you have put these beings on Earth, mixed them with humans, and altered their genetics. So we can't have any more of that. So we're putting a quarantine around the planet. So that's how the quarantine, just according to what I've been told, was put around. The
veil is it like a barrier? Is it like a barrier? So like nothing.
Whenever I see pictures, because sometimes when I'm channeling, I get pictures rather than words. It looks like a light net, a kind of light net. And that's how I think some Dark Lords from Orion can slip through. But it is meant to stop intervention here, but things do slip through. Spaceships slip through, Dark Lords slip through. But the legal way to come is to be born as a human and then wake up in this dimension, which is hard to do because it's a heavy dimension.
Yes, you're reading my mind, because this is what's been channeled to me, is we are a young race, first of all. The other part is exactly that however you get here, whether you choose to incarnate here, and this is sort of, it's not a new theory that you're sharing with me, but maybe different terminology. And I'm really interested to hear a lot about this. This is fascinating me. But that we come in here with spiritual amnesia. That is, if we're coming here for soul evolution, if you will, there's lessons that we want to learn. This is one of the most difficult places to come, because we come in here, like you said, we don't remember, or I call it spiritual amnesia.
Yeah.
On top of it, we come into these fragile yet very heavy, dense bodies.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that exactly what you said, the energy is heavy here. Yeah, I mean, we don't come in with all these gifts. I'm constantly talking about this as a spiritual teacher. We are capable of so much more than we've ever been told. And I hope I live for a world where we see a baby from the day it's born being told and taught how to access these gifts, and a lot of things we've forgotten, like you said, like we come in here with amnesia, but even way back eons ago, that there were things we could do that we've lost that art, if you will.
Right. I think at a certain point, maybe some of the upper chakras were shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And that was unfortunate. But we do have ways, like past life regression can help. You can even dreams, you can actually dream of your life on different planets, in different galaxies. Dreams are a way to pierce the veil, because dreams originate from a place that isn't bound by space and time.
Absolutely.
The unconscious, the collective unconscious, the consciousness of the universe has all the information, and it understands there's no time, that everything is happening at once. We just agree that to time so that our heads don't explode.
Exactly.
We were manifesting everything at once, we would lose it. So we agreed to like spread time out in a linear fashion.
Well, it makes sense to me. I always describe time, that once you start thinking about it, 'cause this is one of my favorite topics, time dimensions, and, talking exactly what you're saying, that there is no time and space on the other side. It's all happening at the same time. It's much faster to be able to manifest on the other side. And actually, it's a gift that we may not be able to manifest so quickly. I mean, there's the old saying, be careful what you ask for, you may just get it. Think of the things that we think in anger, jealousy, rage. If those things really came to fruition, and then once you have that cooling off period, imagine how most people would feel, so I could see that. I'm going to see if we've got any questions here. We got a little bit of comment going on here. So Shannon says, when you talk about the wanderers, do they conduct themselves like everyday people?
Yes. I'll give you an example of some that everybody knows. Benjamin Franklin was most likely a wanderer. Tesla, a wanderer.
I agree.
Jesus volunteered to be a wanderer, to come down into the third dimension, to give his very beautiful, beautiful message that you are loved. You are loved by your God, and you are not to be punished for anything. I mean, Jesus gave the most beautiful messages of oneness and unity, and he tried to teach us to be empowered. You can do all the things that I do. If you just come to open up your higher chakras and understand that you have the power to heal, to resurrect. For the flame of, I call Jesus Lord Sananda in my books.
Okay.
Lady Nada and Lord Sananda were incarnate on earth at one time as Jesus and Mary Magdalene.
I knew it. I've always said they were married, they had children. Yep.
Yeah, they are twin flames. And in my books, I talk about 4 pair of twin flames. one from Arcturus, one from the Pleiades, one from the Violet Planet, and one pair from Venus. And they had been separated when they incarnated as infants. And they had to find one another again. They had to wake up, remember that they were wanderers, find one another again, and then get their message to humanity, all while being pursued by the Dark Lords of Orion who wanted to kill them before they remembered who they were.
I know I'm trying to think of the movie. It was with Timothy, and it's one of my favorite movies, and I always forget the name because it was back in the beginning of the 80s. It was with Timothy, I want to say, I forget what his last name is, but it was with Kelly McGillis. And it reminds me very much of what you're talking about, that they met in heaven or wherever you want to call, wherever home is. And she was a new soul. And he was actually a soldier in the 60s and died very tragically through a selfless act. There was a car accident just outside his house, and he was leaving to go into service, and he went to save the people, and he drowned. So he fell in love with Kelly McGillis in heaven, and they knew they were going to forget each other, but he was determined to find her by the end of the movie, and he only had so much time to find her. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful movie. And it reminds me kind of a little bit of this story. Yeah. Not that it's the same, but I'd love for you to explain, because I was trying to explain this the other night, if you wouldn't mind, please. I go live from time to time, and I do one question readings. And it was called Made in Heaven. I knew I'd remember the name of the movie, by the way, Made in Heaven. Anyways, when I went live, and I was fine with spirit, doesn't matter when it is, there'll always be a theme that'll come through. No matter what the questions are, the answers, there's always a theme. And what's really seemed to be coming through for people are soulmates and twin flames. And I was trying to explain to people that, you can your best friend can be your soulmate. You could have a relative that's a soulmate. It's not just a romantic relationship, but trying to explain the twin flame relationship. There's so many people that think that they've got a twin flame relationship. They're not that common, are they?
Well, what the way that I've been told that who they are is that at the moment we fly out from Source to begin our soul's journey, we're a spark. We're part of God. We're a spark. Yep. And if that spark splits in two, one continuing its journeys and the other continuing its journeys, but they're sharing a soul, that they're sharing a spark. They are twin flames, and they will go through lifetime after lifetime in various galaxies. And when they're complete to a certain level of consciousness, they will find one another again and come back together for the journey home. Soulmates, on the other hand, is just group members that you incarnate with life after life. You can have 30 soulmates, 40 soulmates that you just repeatedly incarnate with.
Right.
One lifetime you're the mother, the next lifetime you're the best friend, then you're the kid, then you're the uncle. So it's all changing, and your soulmates help you to grow. Your twin flame is the other half of you. The other half of your spark.
The way I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that when it's good, it's good. But when it's a lot of energy, like there's a lot, sometimes there can be a lot of drama. There can be a lot, like I have truly met some twin flames that they're twin flames. I love the way you explained that. But I'm going to try and remember that. I will quote you. I always quote people. I don't use their words, but I like, it almost reminds me of identical twins, right? Because you've got one egg and it splits, right? And although they have the same genetic code, they have different souls. I understand that, but it's not every birth that this happens, is what I'm saying. So I've met so many people that believe they found a twin flame.
Not usually in the third dimension. Not very many in the third dimension.
That's what I've been trying to say. I always say it's not my job to judge, and I feel that they'll realize that eventually. But a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between what a soulmate is and what a twin flame is. You've just said it so beautifully, so thank you.
But
we have another question, but go ahead.
Just before the question, that people want so much to have unity and connection and union. So of course they want to inflame or a
Exactly.
soulmate. So it's a wonderful desire to want.
Hmm.
But
Well,
yeah,
for example, sorry, finish what you were going to say. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I got paused
likely
here.
in the fifth dimension or the sixth dimension. But I mean, who am I to know if it couldn't happen occasionally in the third dimension? But I think the drive for that or the wish for that is a beautiful wish for unity. So
Yeah, I ended up getting, and we sometimes do. I don't know if you do any readings or not, but I find that we get a lot of questions right now about people feeling very lost, feeling stuck, what's my purpose, and a lot of romance questions. And they really centered around twin flames and soulmates. And I don't need a deck, but I find when I'm doing a one question quick reading, I give them what spirit says and without fail. And I'm not being no ego here. You just trust in, I use angel cards, and the message will be repeated in the card. So the one was asking about a soulmate, and I didn't know how I knew this. It came through that this person suffered from some narcissism. I said, I'm not diagnosing, I'm not qualified to diagnose. But when I started explaining what I was feeling and I was picking up and I was explaining that some of the lessons here were, what did you learn from that love when you first met? There's always a lesson that you're drawn to a person when you fall in love. And when the relationship ends, what did you take as part of a lesson? But also there's a lot of healing, and there's also it takes two to have a relationship, right? It's not just one person. But this came through as well about her setting some personal boundaries, and it's okay to want to have somebody to look after you. I could pick up right away it was an empath wanting to nurture and care and attracting those kind of people. And she said, oh my God, yes, this is dead on. But when I pulled the card, it said soulmate. I knew right away this didn't mean that this was a romantic soulmate. And it actually, a lot of the information, I'll even copy from the book for them and send that to them or read it to them after I've given them what spirit says. It was very clear exactly what had come through. But I hear what you're saying. I think we are predisposed, I can't even say the word predisposed, as human beings to love, to wanting to belong, to
connect.
have, because exactly what you just said, we're all part of each other, whether we realize it or not. We're programmed this way, right?
Yeah, we are. We're all part of the divine.
Hmm. I think people don't realize it. And the same thing, even with energy, like you said, with certain energies. And, I think my record in a store one day was 8 people. And people don't, not everybody understands about energy. They think it's a big woo woo kind of thing. And I always use this example. I never remember what show it was from, but there were two guys talking and they didn't know each other that well. And the one guy got right up in his face and he goes, dude, personal space, and backs right up. And so, to explain to people what an aura is or an energy field, and we do it without thinking, depending on the level of intimacy we have with somebody, right?
Right, right, right.
So people don't know why they're drawn to you, or they'll be telling you I think it was, like I said, it was 8 people in about an hour, and they kept saying, I don't know why I'm telling you my whole life story. I don't even know you. But it's about energy, right? They get drawn, they
Yeah,
can feel it, but they don't know why.
attracted to it.
Hmm. There is a question in here. So we've got quite a few questions actually. So Shady D wants to know, what if during your birth you realized that you didn't want to be here at all? That's a good question.
Yeah. I think that happens a fair amount of times.
Mhm.
And it's my understanding that up until 2 years of age, you do have the option of vacating the vehicle and
Mhm.
taking the soul out. And I think some crib deaths may be that, some miscarriages may be that. Um, Cindy Dale told me that in the 8th month of my mother's pregnancy, I wanted to turn around. I wanted to leave, but my guides persuaded me to re enter the body and be born. So I think, yeah, I think you know, a, a lot of souls want to have a human life. It's a great privilege, but it's also frightening because this is a tough dimension. we come here to grow. We come here to learn. But there's a lot of pain and suffering, and we grow a lot from pain and suffering.
That's how we grow, I believe, because there is no impetus for change or growth when everything is status quo and is happy. We really, that's how I really believe that's the impetus for change.
Yeah.
If you're going to grow or you're going to evolve or whatever, you may even find what your purpose in life is. And it kind of sounds sadistic in a way, but it's true. That's think about this, somebody whose child was murdered, God forbid, and they have a choice, right? They're always going to grieve. There's always going to be that hole feeling like that's in their soul. But you've seen what parents say, for example, anybody, but parents, I'm using it as an example, some of the incredible work they've done that has changed all around the world, legislation, support groups, things like, but this is with anything in life, right?
And when you have a terrible suffering like the loss of a child, you have a choice to become bitter or to become enlightened. And that's the choice. But to finish that question, I think spiritual law allows a soul to leave up to the age of 2. After that, you're supposed to stay. And
what about walk-ins? Because I've heard of walk-ins before. That one person, I believe, actually was a walk-in, and it happened at 9 years of age.
Yeah, I think the higher self of each person can negotiate that to give the vehicle to someone else, which seems, if you're really that unhappy, a generous thing to do, because people and beings want to come here for the experience. It's the hot spot in the universe right now because we're moving into the 4th dimension. And only if you can hold enough violet light and enough consciousness, the consciousness of loving all as one, can you continue incarnating here after you die this time. If you can't hold the vibration of the 4th dimension, then you'll have to incarnate on another planet, which is still 3rd dimensional. But if you can hold enough light to make the leap to the 4th dimension, then you can come back here if you want to, or you can go to another 4th dimensional planet, because our vibration needs to match the planet we're on, because the intensity of the light energy will soon be too strong here. Even though we're having all this strife right now, things are going in a really good direction, planetary wise.
Yes.
Because Earth is moving into the 4th dimension, and people are waking up everywhere. Consciousness is bursting out of people. And some people are struggling and suffering and holding on and don't want to go forward, and because they're afraid. And they all must be loved as one. All. We're all one flock. But
I have.
And many souls want to come here. So if you're going to give up your body because you don't like it here, ask your guides to arrange a walk-in, which is a kinder thing to do, rather than waste the vehicle.
What about all these suicides that we're seeing? So where does that fit within all this plan? I'm just curious. I'm fascinated by what you're sharing. It's not new, but it's so fascinating to hear it from somebody along the same lines of what I've sort of been believing in and really believing in myself.
I think 2 things about that. One is that in some cases, the current personality overwhelms the soul, overwhelms the vehicle, and the soul, and destroys it, and the soul leaves just for their personal reasons. They can't handle it. Sometimes there's a possession that drives the suicide, and that's not uncommon that it could be a possession, which can be cleared. There are many people who can do exorcisms, and every Catholic diocese has an exorcist, but there are lay exorcists also. And shamans are very good at exorcism. Sometimes an infant or a child agrees to an early death. This isn't usually suicide, in order to provide lessons for the rest of the family.
Absolutely,
because we're a school group. And so one time you provide the lesson, one time you provide the lesson. Because in the bigger picture, one life or one shortened life is not so much. We have all eternity. Well, there's no time, but we have all eternity and there's no time, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense because I believe I had a near-death experience as a toddler. And I mean, I'm going to be 56 in August. So, and I was talking to a friend of mine, this very, very gifted psychic medium. And he had actually had one that had lasted 4 months. And I keep asking if he's going to write the book because he's told me so much about what he experienced. He said, actually, I probably have had many. When I was the age of 8, one summer, it was between April until the snow flew here. Every night at 3 a.m., I would wake up completely blue, not breathing. I wasn't being choked. They didn't know what was causing it, and diagnosed me with asthma. I don't believe that's what it was. He says, yeah, you've had many during this lifetime. I don't know if I have or not. I believe him because he's pretty dead on about a lot of other stuff I didn't tell him. I mean, it's just a conversation. He has to be somebody I've known from previous lives. Like we talked for 7 hours and it was like an hour. I realized that it had gone by. But the reason why I mention this is I got very drawn to it. It was August 1984. I was 17 years old. I got my first magazine from nursing, and it's whatever year it is. Like it'll be Nursing 2021. It's a nursing journal. And on the front, there were two things that have always stuck with me. One of them was, why are we always eating our young? And the second one was talking about nurses' experiences with death and also a lot with near death experiences. Now, the first part was about senior nurses feeling very overwhelmed, very overworked. They didn't want to mentor young students and what they were going through. I don't know why I took that very seriously. I've always taken students because I feel that anybody, regardless of what age, coming into whatever profession, whatever it may be, but especially younger people, they're the future, right? And then the second part, I have been fascinated by it. I've studied it for 40 years. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I've been very blessed to have spoken to a few patients that have had a cardiac arrest in the hospital, were successfully resuscitated. And you know darn well they were on the top of that ceiling where they said they were because you knew them well enough that they didn't have the vocabulary, I can't even talk tonight, vocabulary or the knowledge to relay what they were sharing prior to this experience. But what I'm finding is so many people are reminded after that experience why they came here, and a lot of gifts are opened up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. I've had several patients who had near-death experience. Carl Jung himself, who I'm a Jungian psychologist,
Yes.
had a near-death experience and described it the way so many people do, of a tunnel of light being met. Even the life review, which is different than what we expect, because in the life review, apparently, the soul experiences what happened to the other person as a result of them. So it's a real teaching. And sometimes the soul is given a choice whether to come back or not. And many don't want to come back and are forced to come back. Others have a choice. But we only talk to the ones who do come back. So the experience seems very similar. And the most beautiful aspect that I've heard repeatedly is about the feeling of love on the other side. That there's like a feeling of love beyond love. And the idea that you are so loved as a being and that you are blamed for nothing. You are to learn and you are to experience some of the things that you created while you were on earth, but you are blamed for nothing. You are loved. And that's why people don't really want to come back, because they are so loved. They feel so loved. And we have a hard time to keep that feeling in the third dimension because we get competitive and silly.
So we forget. Like I have a friend that used to be on this network, Heidi Hollis. She's now over on Coast to Coast AM. And she's had quite a few really interesting experiences and near-death experiences. And she describes it as the only way, and she says it's not even adequate. It's like a love soup. When you have a soup, you can't, it's all pureed, but you can't separate all the ingredients that have gone into it, but it's made this beautiful dish, right? But you're just that incorporated with love. And she said that doesn't even, there aren't human words to express the level of love that there is.
Yeah.
Or people are to always mention it as going back home. But my thing is, why do they get reminded, a lot of people, when they have a near-death experience, especially as an adult or when they're cognitively able at a certain age, even as younger children, to remember why they're here? And they always seem to have, their gifts seem to be opened up, like completely opened up. They maybe didn't have them before the experience, and then it happens.
Because they're not bound. Once they get out of body and they get into a different dimension, in the in-between space, they're not bound by third dimensional reality in the same way that dreams aren't bound. Dreams see around corners and into the future. They remember the future as well as the past. When a soul is on the other side, they are not bound by this reality. And so their knowledge and their vision is so much vaster. They have more access to universal consciousness, the kind of consciousness we can only access in dreams. Because as we grow up and we go to school, we shut down more and more. The more the frontal lobe becomes myelinized and developed, and we become more smarter, more intelligent, the less we are able to be in contact with those other kinds of knowledge about who we truly are, divine beings having a temporary experience in a big battery of human body. But when the soul crosses over in a near death, they aren't bound by the frontal lobe anymore.
Right, or the monkey mind, some people call it in this field, in the light worker field.
So they can take it in. And that's a gift.
It is a gift. Like I am, my third book I'm writing, experiences of nurses and what they've experienced when people are just about to pass over. And it's something I call the gift. And you see it in about 85% I've had through the years of working. And it's usually somebody that's been terminally ill. They're very close to the end. It's coming by the physical signs. It may be a minute, maybe 5 minutes. It could be a couple of hours. Sometimes it's 8 hours. And that's usually hard for family because they think a miracle has occurred because the person wakes up, they're completely cognitive, they're able to have those final conversations with their loved ones. That's why I call it the gift. But the other thing that I'm writing about is sometimes we see things as nurses, but you hear many of the people that are passing away or just before death talking about, might be Archangel Azrael that's there. It's their husband, maybe, if they've gone on before them, their mother, their father. There's angels. There's all kinds of things. And sometimes we're really blessed to see that at the end of life as nurses. And I guess what I'm thinking is, I almost wish that most people could see these things. That's why I'm writing this book.
Right.
And I've got so many incredible stories from nurses that it doesn't even have to be palliative care. It could be something very quick, very acute, whatever it is. And it's just mind-blowing to hear and to see. I have even seen on live camera, it looks like the vision of an angel, all in bright light, outside this little one who had special needs and was expected to die. And the nurses kept saying, "What is that? What is that?" And they were filming it. And the nurse would go down the hallway. She wouldn't see it, but she could see it on the camera. That little one lived and is fine. So was that her guardian angel, do you think? What do you think something like that happens when we have somebody watching over us?
I think it's either a guardian angel or one of the person's guides.
Okay.
Or it could have come in answer to a prayer from the parents. But we're all accompanied with guides and guardian angels. And if we ask them for help, they will help us. And if we ask for someone else, they will help that person. But we have to ask. But someone was praying for that child. Maybe all the nurses were praying for that child too.
We've done that. We've got quite a few questions. I could just talk to you all night long, and I thank you so much for answering all my questions. I'm one of these people, once I find something so
Yeah.
fascinating, I've got like a million questions because you're confirming a lot for me that I've received from Spirit, but also it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I know Shady D had asked that great question. Hang on, where were we? She said, yes, can a spark split into more than two? We've got quite a few questions here, so I got to stop asking because these are good questions. And then she says, I've always thought the twin flame was the direct opposite, is what she's saying too. So she wants to know if it can split more than twice into two, and then are they the exact opposite of each other?
Yeah. I have not heard of them splitting into more than two, but that doesn't mean it because I haven't heard everything. I only know
Exactly.
what I've been told from the beings who channel to me. And they have not mentioned that, but maybe they will at some point. And I will let Lorilei know.
Okay.
That opposite, in terms of one embodying masculine principles and one embodying feminine principles, whether or not they're in a masculine body or a feminine body, because we've all been in most. But so in that sense, they are opposite. But as far as characteristics and personalities, the spark is just made of love. It's divine love. You learn a lot by being challenged by your opposite. If an introvert gets together with an extrovert, and in a relationship, you have to fight your corner in a reasonable way because you're a slacker in a relationship if your partner is doing something you don't like again and again and again, and you just get annoyed, but you don't address it and work it through. So, in that sense, if a twin flame is also our teacher, then we grow from having opposite characteristics in any given lifetime where we come together. But in the beginning, the only information I've received is that when the split of the spark comes, one takes the feminine principle, one the masculine principle, and they journey that way. And sometimes the feminine is in a male body, sometimes in a female body. The masculine sometimes
I was just going to say, I was just thinking I was going to add, and that doesn't mean gender, physical gender.
Yeah, it's the principle. So, yeah, getting with people different than you helps you grow. And the way we grow the very most is in a relationship because there are challenges.
That's so cool. That I really appreciate. We've got so many good questions in here. So Shady D is commenting and saying, I have met three people that I feel I have known forever the moment I've met them. We all have that, right? Sometimes.
Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Probably
You probably have.
Soul group. It's your soul group. You're meeting them.
I just mentioned about the person I had a conversation with for 7 hours, and it was like an hour.
Yeah.
And we had traveled in the same circles. We were on each other's friends list, but we'd never connected. And he was looking for a guest for his independent podcast. And the reason why I trust him, because my dog outside, she'll probably show up. She usually does she's a German Shepherd, and she's still a pup. She's just a year. And there's a puppy next door, and they've gotten along great. Okay. But what happened all of a sudden, my dog had gone out to camp. My mother-in-law's little one didn't like dogs, and I didn't want to be rude, but my dog just hated her on site. Okay. And that's where the barking started when she came back. But whenever she'd see the puppy, her hackles would be up, and they're only a couple months apart. Like just there was a lot of energy there. And this happened while I was outside, and my friend said to me, do you mind if I reach in? And I said, sure, absolutely, go ahead. And what he explained, and he didn't know, he couldn't see, it was exactly what I was feeling and I sort of known to be true. He suggested something in the way of, he said, your dog's chatty. I said, well, look at her mother. And then I said, she's saying, fix it, mom, fix it, fix it. And she's showing me the energy like a tornado. And this little puppy next door, you can tell is very, very anxious, not mistreated, but anxious, not making a lot of noise. And he goes, she keeps telling me she wants you to pet the puppy. And there was no way I could pet the puppy while this was happening. And I guess because I said I'm usually fairly calm, he said, I think that that's what it is to transfer that calm to the puppy. So there was no way. I mean, it bothers my neighbors when she's barking. So we happened to talk again. I said, now before we start, I need your help again. Because my oldest child can communicate with animals,
Yeah.
but he doesn't live with me anymore. He's moved out on his own and started his own life. So I said, is there anything that we could do instead? So I wasn't even in front of this puppy. And he said, yep, this puppy's here for a reason. And I said, yep, I always say you get the pets, not necessarily that you want, the pets that you need. And he said, yeah, it's going to turn out well in the end. He said, what you need to do, please, is explain to Emmy, my dog, that she's going to have to stay inside, that I need to go talk to the puppy next door. So I start to explain this. He says, you don't need to tell me. Spirit already knows you're going to know what to do. But this puppy needed to be reassured. You're not alone, because she's outside in her backyard a lot in the daytime. She's a big, big dog. Dogs aren't meant to be alone by themselves. And she needed the reassurance that she was loved, that she was not going to be abandoned in any way, that, we would always be here for her. And that fixed it instantaneously.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It blew my mind. It's bringing me almost to tears. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that even with your channeling and stuff, do you get animals and stuff? Like, do you get things coming through? I got to ask these questions in the group, but I got to ask you this too, because I'm fascinated.
I love animals. I go every morning for an hour with my Labrador Retriever to the dog run.
Pure joy.
Pure joy. That's how I start the day every day. His name is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I love it. Wise one, right? Old soul.
Yes.
So do you channel? Like, do you pick up? Is there animals, like, say, from other dimensions? Or I believe that animals go back to the place we are. I know people refer to it as the Rainbow Bridge. I have even seen animals that don't leave, that still stay in spirit with their loved ones. But I'd love to hear your experiences.
The spirit will hang around the house for a while. But if they want to go back, they incarnate much more quickly than we do. They're here to be our teachers. That's what I've been taught. Animals are here to be our teachers, all kinds of animals. That is their purpose, because they aren't hampered by this big myelinized frontal lobe, which gets them to think they have everything figured out. They just operate on energy and love, particularly love.
Unconditional love. Right?
So
and service. They heal too, don't they? And I've explained this to so many people, that if your animal lays on you on a certain part of you, you may not have any pain there, but energetically you may need some healing. Because, people say sometimes, well, my cat or my dog will lay at my head, or sometimes it's my feet, or they're on my belly, or that's as I've understood it. So has it been shown to you that way as well?
Yeah, and also there are organizations, which train dogs to warn that a child is going to have an epileptic seizure. They're trained to help people with various disabilities. Yes. Now, what I've been told is animals are our teachers. Repeatedly, I've been told that.
Yeah, I've often been suspect of people. I always say it's not my job to judge. Yeah. I actually said this the other night. I was on a podcast, and it's a Canadian, but they're in South Korea. And we were talking about sort of what's going on in the world. And to end it all off, how I had explained how I share with people about we need to pull together. But part of that, I said, I've never understood how, and again, there is no judgment on the other side. That's hard for human beings to wrap their minds around. I understand that when we have justice here and retribution and the courts, and that doesn't happen on the other side, and to try and explain that. But for me, it's always been so difficult, and maybe it's a learning experience for the people around them, when somebody harms a small child, especially, or an animal, because they truly are just nothing but pure love.
That
Mm-hmm.
soul is just so wounded. That soul
Mm-hmm.
is so wounded to do a thing like it. There's love and there's fear. And
Mm-hmm.
people who come from fear do
Mm-hmm.
things which are destructive to
Mm-hmm.
themselves and other beings. But everybody gets there in the end.
Yes,
Everybody
they do.
gets to the place of love. Maybe not in this lifetime, but everybody gets back to understand that they are divine and to live a fearless life eventually.
That's what it's about. Yeah, it is. When you get down to brass tacks, whatever you want to call
We're
it,
supposed to
you
learn
get.
about love in the third dimension. We
Mm-hmm.
got to learn about love here, love for one another and
Mm-hmm.
service to one another.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard sometimes. It really is. And I've said that nobody's perfect. And you know what? But you can't
Yeah.
stop trying either. We've
Yep.
got some great questions here. So, um, sorry, what did Zach? So Zach says, I get drawn to non-judgmental, positive people. That is how I met many of my friends that I consider family. I'm honored to be surrounded by such people. So comment. Shady D says, I must have been very arrogant in a previous life because my birth made me very angry. What's your thoughts on that?
Huh. You know I mean this is just an intuition I'm having, but I think when we're on the other side, we are experiencing that love. And when we're born, we have to separate.
Mhm,
And it's so painful to separate from that place of love. And I
mhm,
think that can make us angry. I don't think she was arrogant in a past life necessarily. I think she was just angry to be separated from the source of that love. Think, oh, and scared. And when we're scared and we feel separation, we can get angry. Doesn't necessarily mean that she was arrogant.
That was beautiful. All these questions that our friend has put in here. I'm kind of asking you them anyways. See if
From from our wonderful, there is a beautiful soul, if ever. And
yeah,
Ganavan has so much psychic power.
he does. He
Yeah,
does. Yes, he does. Yeah. I just clicked with him right
yeah,
away. Hmm.
me
Yeah, and
too.
I can see why. Well, he sent the email to me and you, Susan and Lorilei, two of my favorite people. I thought, oh, he's just so sweet and he's all love, and he's had really difficult things to deal with, and
Yeah, and he's still loving. He's so
mhm,
loving.
mhm. Yeah, he really, really is. He is one of my favorite people, actually. So, I do want to, well, I'll get to these questions because I want people, I think that it's important for them because if they're asking them, this is the most
Yeah,
questions we've
let's
had with
answer
a
the guest
guest.
questions.
Okay, thank you. Because you know what, they're kind of covering what
Yeah,
we're talking about with your book because these people that are here, they're real supporters of my show. I really appreciate it. Plus, on top of it, they're asking great questions, and I'm thinking, holy cow, I didn't think of that.
I'm,
And I love that answer you just gave, Shady D. That was beautiful. Thank you. She said, Shannon said that, Shannon Casey, I love that it's so true. We do grow from hard times. We don't grow when life is status quo. And Shady D comments, Azrael was the one that showed up to me in physical form during my near death experience. So Shannon Casey is also a nurse. And she says, I see Azrael frequently at work. Shady, and then she said Shady D, and she said thanks to Laura Lee, I am not afraid of him anymore. I didn't even know that, so thank you, Shannon. And she said we actually have a good relationship now. I'm glad to hear that. He gets a bad rap sometimes. Do you find there's any other spirits that kind of get that, or any angels that you found, or other dimensions that are positive? But
I think people have some negative ideas of the Nephilim, the fallen angels.
I'd love to
Um,
hear more of that.
yeah, but you know, I think everybody in the end goes back to the light,
Mm-hmm.
negative and positive. And one of the things that I received last week
Mm-hmm.
was that yes, there is some evil in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
But compared to the good, it is so minuscule and it has a purpose. The dark side serves the divine also, because if we didn't have evil, we could never make a choice to do good. We, if everything was just good and no evil, how could you ever choose the path of light over the path of dark? So
Or know
evil,
the difference.
or know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Evil is necessary for our growth,
Mm-hmm.
and the dark lords serve the divine also. So there's no reason to hate any actors.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a part to play, whether they're in whatever realm they're in, whether they're physical or in a in a light dimension, in a higher light dimension.
I never looked at it that way, and I like the way that you've explained that because you're right. You're absolutely right. Like, how would we know the difference? Or when we, I always say, I've even been guilty at times in my life saying, well, I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice. Always. We may not want to make that choice, but we always have a choice, right?
We feel we don't sometimes.
Hmm.
I think it's what you mean. Sometimes we feel we don't have a choice. But
So, what about the Nephilim? I'd love to hear more about that. So, have you channeled them? Have you had a lot of
oh,
experiences with the fallen angels? What goes on with that with you?
no, I haven't channeled them that I know of. Um, but this Australian shaman that I work with told me once that um, I was part Nephilim, and
Okay.
and I was when I looked them up, I was like, I don't want to be that. That's a fallen angel. Weren't they
Yeah.
the guys that came in and had children with the women of Earth or something?
The
And
daughters of men.
yeah, and I was very like distressed by that news. Um, but I know I don't even think they're so bad. Not because maybe I have was part of that in some past incarnation, because I've also seen myself on other planets and other galaxies, and I've seen myself as an animal also, a
Hmm.
four-legged beast that I've never seen existing, like a mythological beast. So we've been many things, and I don't know much about the Nephilim is the truth, because probably since I heard that, I didn't I first was freaked out by it. So just I know about just what you said. That's about the extent of my knowledge about them. And I don't really write about them because I've been concentrating on Earth going into the fourth dimension and the wanderers coming here to help. And the first book is their training on Venus. And that's where they meet. Saint Germain trains them.
Hmm.
Um, Lord Lanto, all the masters of the seven rays of light come to Venus to train these wanderers who will soon incarnate. And the end of the
Why
first book,
Venus?
why Venus? Because Venus is near to Earth, I guess. I'm not sure why.
It's okay.
Because,
That's a good answer.
yeah,
I mean, this is your experience, and I'd rather you be tell me. I really
yeah,
respect you for saying I don't know why. I know that Venus is the god of Venus, isn't she associated with love though
yeah,
too?
that's true, goddess of love. But it's Venus in the fifth dimension, not
Mm-hmm.
the Venus that we perceive from Earth, which has an atmosphere of sulfuric acid.
Right.
So they're training in a higher dimension because Venus is simultaneously, like Earth, existing in all the dimensions.
Mhm.
So they're training on Venus in the fifth, sixth dimension. Um,
Okay.
and then they, at the end of the first book, I actually have the book. I don't know if people can see this. That's the first book. Can you see it?
Okay. Yeah.
They're at the end of this book. Um, they incarnate as babies, and then in this book, there begins when they're 21 years old on Earth. But it does.
That's I started and I didn't get through all the book. I finally had to put it down because I started a couple days ago and I've been working on a lot of research for something else and I've had like an hour's sleep but I could not put that book down. Like I'm not saying this because Susan is here. Like you need to get this book because the minute you open it, there's no way it can't not draw you in
It's
with the
fun.
character that you start with. Yes,
I
that's the one
think
I've been
this
reading.
is a more interesting book for people because this is more story, whereas this one is the backstory, like the prequel. If it was Star Wars, this would be the prequel.
Okay.
This is a lot of the history of Earth, a lot of the theory, what they're learning on Venus. And then the second book is they're here and how they're managing, how they're living in these human bodies and how they're discovering how they work. And they do still have some higher powers which bleed through. And since born in human families, the human parents are like freaking out, like,
yes, and we're seeing a lot of, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a lot of parents that are like, what's with my kid?
Come on, can't be doing that when people see. But then they're of course under attack by the Dark Lords. But
so how much of this is based, and this is just curiosity, these two books so far, are they based on what you've channeled versus what's just sort of come naturally with the rest of the story with what you've received? I hope that's clear.
It's a dance between intuition and received information, and trying to make it into a story that, because sometimes when I'm writing, there's voices around and they even change a word, an actual word. Other times I wake up because I've received something in the night, and I wake up and I know that I'm supposed to write about that. Other times I'll see something, for example, not literally, but like on what are those big boards by the highway with advertisements, like something, I get messages about.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't actually know whether I created these 8 characters or they directly channeled them because they have unusual names. The only one that I feel that I created is one called Sonam. On Earth, her name is Rose. But then
that's who your book starts with, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I said, you just, from the first few words, you'll be drawn in, people.
When my younger sister died, I didn't feel complete with her and I wanted to contact her. So I went to a life between life regression therapist who can take you in what essentially is a near-death experience, take you to the in-between. And it's about 8 hours, 4 hours, and then another 4 hours. And it was a regression therapist who was trained by, I'm messing his name, maybe, is it Michael Lewis? It'll come to me, who's now dead, but the guy that did all the past life regression work. It'll come when it comes. But so I went to the other side, and the regression psychologist kept talking to me, and I wanted him to stop talking to me because I was communicating via mental telepathy over there. Right. And he was bothering me, but I knew he was trying to keep a hold of me also, psychologically. Right. And he would say things like, "What do you look like?" And I'll be like,
I don't want to tell you this. I'll tell you when I get back.
And he said, "Look down." And I said, "Oh, I'm a blue oval. I'm a blue oval of light." And then he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Sonam." And that's a character in the book, Sonam.
Wow.
And so that name I was just given when and I did actually see my sister, and I also saw my father. They were also ovals of light, and the communication was via mental telepathy. The whole time I was just weeping and weeping and weeping. And it was a it was a really wonderful journey. If anybody wants to speak to someone on the other side, and you can just do it yourself by just speaking to them and praying for them to come. And I'm sure that they do, but I, at that moment, wanted to go over there. So
What I understand from what Spirit's shown me, like the fact that you were talking about sparks of light or wherever on the other side, what they've shown me is over on the other side. And I've never been hung up on the name of my guide, maybe in the beginning, but I've just sort of always known that wasn't important. And over there, as I understand, they've agreed that here on this planet, we use names to identify each other. But over on the other side, they recognize each other by energy, never mind about the love.
Yeah.
But they said human beings on the other side are shown as little pinpricks of light. People that are starting to awaken and recognizing whether they're wanderers or just waking up to why they're here or their abilities almost look like a bonfire, they said.
Wow.
But they've also shown me, and again, this is just my own interpretation, that it's not only the light that can see you. Like you said, we've got some dark as well. They also can see that and recognize it's much easier. Is that something you've been shown as well, or has it been interpreted a little differently for you?
No, that's very consistent, especially that we are recognized by our vibration. It is the same way animals recognize us in this
Yeah.
dimension, and the
Yeah.
same way the earth recognizes us. And we also recognize other people by their vibration. We don't, we use the names, but we feel a lot. You know, when you're attracted to somebody or repelled by certain energy, you feel the vibe, but our vibration varies in this dimension. If we can keep our energy positive, and it's not always easy.
It's not.
We give off one sense, and the times when we're dark, people can feel that too. But dogs, all animals, they read our energy. The earth herself recognizes us by our energy, just as on the other side. Because these didn't look like my father and my sister. They were light, but I recognized them and they recognized me because of the vibration.
Vibration. And like I said, energy, same word. We're just using different words exactly. And that's how they're recognized on the other side. Like you've said, like you didn't really speak to each other. You weren't the same form that you were familiar with, but you knew each other, right?
Yeah.
I am utterly fascinated by animal communication. Actually, I've known since both my sons were little, even my youngest, I've got two. My youngest, with his difficulties, he's very, very powerful with it through his third eye. The other thing is, I've been told this, but I knew this right away. I don't know why. We've known since he's been 5 months old that there was something. But he chose to come here this way, to be born actually with autism.
Yes.
And
we all make those choices. We make every choice for our conditions.
Yeah. And then my youngest, you know how I found out, actually, he would say a few things. Both my boys spoke late in life. He had started really speaking well, probably about just before the age of 3. He had chronic ear infections and something. And I'd already hurt my back. I hurt my back when he was 15 months old, and he's 25. So I was laying on the couch, and he was just about 2.5. And, as a mother, you try and hide things from your kids. Like, even though I was in bed almost for 20 years, like I still did whatever I could from a laying position or whatever. And he walked up to me and he said, "Mommy, your back really hurts today." And I said, "Sweetheart, why would you say that?" I said, "Yes, actually it does." "Well, usually you have all these really pretty, pretty lights all around your head, and today it just looks like gray." And I thought, this is coming from a child that's not even quite 3 years old. And then so I never pushed it. But then he would tell me things that we've always had pets, what the animals were thinking or what they needed. And then when you mentioned about being in an animal form in another life, and you work with different mentors, I've had people tell me that you can't be reborn as an animal, which I know not to be true. He had a friend's mom that did this kind of work, and he was about 12 or 13, and she asked my permission, and I trusted her. So she did a bit of a regression with him. And he says he was a wolf in a previous life. He explained it all to me, and who he was and where he was and what it felt like to be a wolf. And It's so cool. And like that's where I sit with parents that are freaking out with these children. I really do believe we have a new breed of children. And
Yeah,
we're seeing it, especially, I don't like titles, but with millennials,
yeah.
because I think they are so sensitive. We're getting a lot of depression. You would know this working in psychology, depression, anxiety, all kinds of things. And I really believe they are a new breed, if you will. What's your
Every,
thoughts on that?
every new generation is more evolved,
Mm,
especially right now as
mhm,
Earth transitions fully into the fourth dimension in the age of Aquarius.
mhm,
Um, People who are really ready, souls who are really ready to be fourth dimensional, who are the most advanced souls who want to come here, are
mhm,
coming, have been coming now for the last 2 decades.
mhm,
So, yeah, I agree that at this period of Earth, and
mhm.
Earth, many periods of greatness, and
Yes.
at this period, the advanced souls are coming because we will be fourth dimensional. Well, we are. Earth herself is fourth dimensional, and many beings are. But um, yeah, I think the kids who are coming are wonderful, amazing.
That's so cool. I could talk to you all night long. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting about the chat room. You're just so fascinating. I'm so
Yeah,
glad that Gavin connected us.
yeah. To
So they were talking a little bit when Shannon had said that she's comfortable now with Archangel Azrael. She said he's about 7 feet tall for her in a black cloak. She said she can't see the face. So somebody was asking, does he look like the Grim Reaper? And she said, well, kind of a little bit. She said, I'm a nurse in long-term care. She said, now I more feel him when he's in the room with me and my patient.
mm,
So, and then JDD wanted to ask, she said, the face is a void, not just empty space. It looks like non-existence. Did you see a walking stick or staff? She says, I saw one with a crystal ball on top. So have you ever worked with Archangel Azrael? Is that your experience for yourself or?
um, I haven't worked with him. Um, I well, I shouldn't say that because this shaman, the Australian shaman, had
Mhm,
a period of years where she channeled archangels,
mhm.
and she was embarrassed to admit that she could do that.
Oh, really?
So she would call them the arcs.
Oh,
So
I like that.
I'm
That's
not
cool.
sure who was giving me the information, but I would go to her for readings over a period of years, and she would say the arcs are here. And their energy was so beautiful. Like they would start, oh, our beloved child is here. And they were so loving, and they would just give me information that they thought I needed. One time they actually said to me, oh, stop working so hard. Have a cocktail, eat a cookie. I
I
mean, there was
love it. And that would be
that
some of the
conversation.
energy because the reason why the show is called the Angel Rock is because I do work a lot with the archangelic realm. Also, I've always loved angels. I also love like fairies and unicorns. I've always loved that kind of thing. And I love crystals. I also love rock music. And I used to have a different name for my business. And then I realized I needed to own who I was. So that's why the show is called this. That's why everything else is called this. And because it's who I am.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's so great that you have the courage to just be who you are.
Hmm.
It's wonderful. I have archangels in both books actually,
Hmm.
because each of the masters of light is always accompanied by an archangel or two, and they all have temples in the etheric realm around the earth, but not visible in the earth. Um, and they all are accompanied by archangels. So I write about them, but all my only direct experience of them is through Carrie Henwood
Hmm.
channeling them, and she hasn't channeled them in the last 3 or 4 years, and I really miss them. She channels other
Awesome.
beings now.
Ask
What
for they'll
I
come.
I should just ask for. Occasionally, I will ask for one of them or the other of them to come. But you're right. I could ask directly. That's the thing that's so wonderful for each human, for each of us.
Hmm.
We don't need a religion. We can have a direct relationship with the angelic realm and with the divine. You
Mhm.
know, when I was a little girl, I was raised Catholic.
Me too.
And when I was in first grade, the teacher said, "You can't sit by the window anymore because you can't pay attention. You're always looking out." So she moved my desk over to the bulletin board. And then, so I was working over there, feeling like I'd just been punished. Why was
Oh,
I moved over to the bulletin board side away from the windows? And then she came by and I looked up at her. Her name was Miss McGinnis. And I said, "But Miss McGinnis, what are we all doing here?" And I was meaning, like,
I
you
love
know,
it.
what's the meaning of life? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? And
Mhm.
she just slapped me down. She said, "Aren't you Catholic?" And I was like, what does that have to do with it? When you're 6, religion is just you go on Sunday to church. I didn't know what it was about. I had no clue.
I
Now,
still knew. I
yeah,
went to Catholic school till 10th grade. It had no relevance in my life.
yeah.
Mhm.
My mother used to punish me with that threat. "You're going straight to the nuns. You're going straight to the nuns if you don't behave." But
Mhm.
now that I have a direct relationship with Jesus, I
Mhm.
adore that man, God.
Yeah.
I love him. I love the things he said when he was on earth. And I mean, he's a character in my books,
Mhm.
right? His forever name, I've been told, is Lord Sananda.
Mhm.
Jesus was his name, like Laura Lee is your name, and Susan
Right.
is my name here. But my forever name is Sonam. His
Mhm.
forever soul name, until he merges with the divine total,
Yeah.
is Lord Sananda. And Mary Magdalene is Lady Nada. But
Love it.
anyway, um, how did I get off talking about first
It
grade?
doesn't matter. I'm fascinated
Yeah,
because these are things that you don't get to have this kind of conversation with a lot of people and be on the same page about it. Everything you've explained here, and obviously the people in the chat room are enjoying it because they're commenting and asking
good.
questions, and because most of the people that come to this network anyways are very open-minded. They're looking for a different perspective. There's all kinds of different programming, and we're really lucky because Joe's been doing this for a long time. So the shows anywhere go out from 160 to 200 different countries. So we got people listening from all over the world that'll be hearing about this, and probably a lot of people would really have connected with this. Like I say, they aren't always over in the chat room. We're trying to grow that. But we're covered anywhere where there's talk radio or podcasts. So we see a lot of comments and people will say stuff over there. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to connect with what you're saying. So
I know. I think many people would like to have a direct relationship with the
mhm.
divine. It's
Yeah.
fine if you want to go through religion. The only problem with it is if you have to say, "Well, my religion is better than your religion," and then, you know,
Or
they
fear.
all, or fear. They
Fear,
all have beautiful
punishment,
thoughts.
retribution,
Yeah,
that God's a vengeful God. None of that stuff
that,
is true. I'm sorry, but it's not.
that is the Old Testament. And you
Mm,
know what? They're not even talking about God in the writings in the Old Testament. I think they're talking about extraterrestrials who came and had power over them.
mhm,
The New Testament, where Jesus speaks and the apostles speak,
mhm,
it's not about punishment. Jesus is telling us, you are loved. You
mhm.
are so loved by the divine. You are loved by God. There's
Yeah.
hell and burning and all that garbage. That Old Testament is not about God. It's about powerful beings that were controlling whoever was on earth at that time and
Mhm,
writing those stories. But
mhm.
they were more powerful than us, but they were not God. The
But
New
people
Testament,
thought they were because I guess I've heard the story and I believe it.
yeah,
Because I've often said, and this is because I've gotten people, I don't read many of the comments, but once in a while, if I'm sharing the links off of YouTube to our episode, someone asks, and I think I've only seen it once or twice. We don't, we didn't share it for any other reason than if anybody else was having issues like this, there's help out there, there's people you can speak
yeah,
to, connect with. And I kept seeing this comment like, because they left it on a hanging note. They didn't tell them what had really happened because we weren't in that point of the story at that time. And there were people saying things like, the reason why this has happened is because the two of you live in sin. You need to get right with Jesus. You need to find religion. And I think I actually wrote one comment one time and said, just because I didn't discuss my religious or beliefs in a higher power doesn't mean that we didn't have a belief. That's what got us through all of this stuff. It got me on this path of what I'm doing now. It was a crazy way to end up there, but
Yeah.
that's what it did. And the thing with me is, okay, going to Catholic school, you'll relate. If God is everywhere, right? And God is our Father, I've never had to go to a special building to speak to my Father, first of all.
Exactly.
Second of,
Exactly.
second of all, to me, and I always saw this, you'd go to this big cathedral and the people with the money would sit at the front and they'd watch everybody that put the money in there. And we'd all wear our best, most expensive clothes, everybody it seemed. And the people that were poor, who Jesus ministered to, looked after, and were part of the people that he hung around with, his peeps, if you will.
Yeah.
You see this at the back of the church. They don't feel welcome. And then the minute people walk out, done. So to me, I said, no, you know what? I've realized myself, I believe, and if some people need this. So again, it's not my job to judge, but for me, it's more about your connection with God and Jesus. Mother Mary, her energy is beautiful.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's more about the love and how we treat people like we've been talking about for the last almost 2 hours. It's not about what you wear to a building or who gives the most money or whatever it is. And to me, I couldn't reconcile that. So yes, I consider myself highly spiritual, but I don't identify with that religion anymore.
Yeah. I am on the same page with you.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to do that, they can do that. But we don't have to have our relationship with God go through some church or some building. Yeah. We can have a direct relationship with angels.
Mm-hmm.
We ourselves are loved, and we can have a direct relationship with the divine, with archangels, and with God.
Mm-hmm.
Just us to God.
Exactly. We don't need to have, I mean, I think we were
the laws and punishments of all the various religions. You have to do it this way. You have to long sounds, pray 5 times a day facing Mecca or whatever. You can do it if you want.
Sure.
Also, just talk to God yourself.
Mm-hmm. And he answers, like even, well, Cindy Dale will tell you this yourself. You don't even need a medical intuitive to heal yourself. If you're sitting truly quiet and you speak to your body will give you the answers, and it does.
Ask the divine to send scalar waves, healing waves of grace, another word for scalar waves, or Tesla waves, healing energy from the absolute universe, which existed before the universe we see. Because, well, even black holes are older than the Big Bang. So we know that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of anything. It was just a Big Bang, the beginning of this or that. But the universe is far older than the Big Bang. It always was. That's not a concept my frontal lobe can grasp, but I try.
I hear you. I always say it's like looking in a mirror of a mirror of a mirror of a mirror. You know, when you've seen, and it's ready to blow my mind when I start getting really deep.
Beginning and no end. But it's hard to grasp. The thing about time and forever is a little hard. But anyway, whenever I have a pain or an ache, or my daughter or a client, I just call in healing waves of grace from the absolute universe. You know, Cindy Dale has a thing where she says, affirm your spirit, affirm the greater spirit and your guides, and ask for healing waves of grace. Ask for scalar waves, or also called Tesla waves, to come and do the healing, and they will know what to do. They will know what to do to fix it. But you must ask. You must ask. You can ask for another person with their permission, or you can ask for yourself. So.
Well, even with the fact that with the crystal Reiki I tell people I'm kind of like the mailman. We're just channeling that loving, beautiful, multicolored vibrational light.
Yeah.
And that is what's being sent. It's not me doing anything. I cannot take any credit for any of that. I am, like I said, I'm like the mailman or the channel, if you will,
That's
but it's not me.
That's what you did for the neighbor's dog. You were sending crystal Reiki energy to
Mm-hmm.
calm that dog down,
Mm-hmm.
to calm the dog down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And tell her she's loved. You're not alone. And again, I want to stress the dog is not abused in any way, but being a pup, and we know as dogs and
But
how dogs live, they like to
also
have
being
be
tied in the
in,
yard.
in the
In the yard.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we haven't got a lot. I told you this was gonna fly by. I knew it would. For some reason I just knew you and I were gonna have this awesome conversation. I knew it because I don't know, maybe I could feel your energy. I don't know what it was. I'm gonna have you back on here. I know I am because I mean, there's so much more I want to ask you. You're wise beyond your years, believe me.
Everyone's free, so I have a lot of years.
No, you don't. No, I'm talking about when we say an old soul. And when I say an old soul, I mean somebody that has much, much, much wisdom, much. And you do.
It's
You
all
really do.
given. It's just been given.
Yeah, I know, but you're just the beautiful way you're able to share this because with these books, like I want to buy your first book
Uh,
because I do with what you've talked about. And like I said, I wasn't BSing you. The first paragraph of your book that you've just released, I was like, holy crap, I'm hooked. There's certain books like, and they don't even compare, and I'm not making a comparison. But for example, I kept hearing all this buzz about the Harry Potter books. The beginning, they were so, but as they evolved and the story evolved, right? And it wasn't just a trilogy, but they built on each other,
yeah.
where yours is a trilogy, you got drawn in and you couldn't put it down. And that's the kind of books you've written.
Uh, Thank you so much for that. You
Uh,
always that someone's out there listening.
well, I thought it was amazing. We got a few more comments here. So Shannon did mention that she hasn't seen the staff. She said there are long sleeves that cover his hands when they were talking about our angel Azrael. So Shady D says the loving energy makes so much sense. I have seen my soul group several times, and there is one man I see that feels like my eternal love, and he has come to visit me. It explains so much about me. So that's her comment. She also says she loves working with Metatron. I know I work with Metatron with the Akashic Records a lot, but especially we call them the masters, teachers, and loved ones. So many of who you've mentioned, we work as a collective with them, right? So many who you've mentioned are part, and they're not always the same. We've got, let's see, Shannon said, Susan, when you explained the definition of a wanderer, I honestly felt like you spoke directly to who I am. That's why I asked if a wanderer could be like an everyday person. I must have missed that, but she said that's why she was asking, I guess, could it just be an everyday person? But she's identifying with what you explained.
They are everyday people, and she could be one.
Hmm. Oh,
Definitely.
I think she might very well be.
Yeah.
I think she might well be. I hope I didn't miss any questions up here because I didn't see that. So I'll go through here. So where can, I always give people time. There is a question I'm dying to ask you. I don't know why Gavin mentioned this, but I'm going to ask it. I never usually ask this, especially after the conversation we've had. But he said, what is sex like in another dimension? Have you had sex with a dimensional being?
Um, what I've come to understand
Hmm.
from what the council, the
Hmm.
Columbus
Yeah.
Council, that sex in a higher dimension
Hmm.
is a matter of merging with light
Okay.
energy into a state of cosmic bliss, that the universe itself dwells in a state of cosmic orgasm. And
Hmm.
when you go up through the chakras, so up through the violet ray,
Right.
you then merge with that state of cosmic orgasm, and the
Hmm.
orgasm doesn't stop after 50,
Wow.
30 seconds. It's the closest we get in life to the God energy is orgasm. We've been given the gift of orgasm through our physical bodies.
Right.
Imagine that intensified and prolonged, because when you can connect to that realm, which lives in a state of cosmic orgasm, then it is sex in a higher dimension is just a constant state. Orgasm is a constant state. So no, I haven't had fifth dimensional sex and beyond.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, who wouldn't? Because actually, I've had a few people that it's now they think it may be an extraterrestrial experience, but they've also shared that they've had a sexual experience as well. And they've said it's been mind-blowing, the
Wow.
best that's ever happened to them. And I didn't mean to get so off topic, but I thought there had to be a reason he asked this. Like, I'm very comfortable discussing this topic
In Mission
because
Venus, I do some descriptions of higher dimensional sex. In this book, they can have sex either way.
oh, wow.
But in this, as third dimensional or fifth dimensional. But in this book, they have sex as fifth dimensional beings.
I don't know why, but when you said that, I just got this flash of those books being made into a movie. I don't know why I did.
I've heard that before. I have heard that before,
Have you?
actually. Yeah. If
Yeah,
it's
as soon
going
as
to
you
reach
said
a lot
that.
of people, if the message is true, maybe it will to reach people.
So somebody said, this was great. Thank you for all that you have said and discussed. I know, because I know most of these people personally, they're going to be asking me when you're coming back. And then they added, it's Shady D. She just switched to her other account. It says Shadow Designs, but it's the same person. She said, sex in another realm is, oh, wow. So, and
Yeah.
people are comfortable with this. I'm comfortable with that topic. There's nothing dirty or anything. It's a
It's a
beautiful
gift.
experience, and there's nothing to be shameful about. Hmm.
Orgasm is a gift we've been given.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a gift we've been given, whether you pleasure yourself or you have a
Yeah,
partner. It's a gift that we've been given as in our human bodies.
I
I mean,
agree.
imagine living in that state of that much joy and pleasure. Oh,
Never mind the love.
and the love, and the love.
Hmm. I
We're
agree.
all
Well, see,
going there. We're all going to get there. Everyone gets back home.
it's
Everyone gets back there. It's just how long are we going to take? You want to take another 300,000 years? Okay. You want to spend another 75,000 years in the third dimension on a different planet? Okay. You want to go to the fourth dimension now? Learn about love and service to others. Whether you do it through nursing or childcare or giving
teaching. Hmm.
extra tomatoes in your garden.
Hmm. Or even random, I've been telling people random acts of kindness are more of a gift to yourself than they are for the person that you do it. And not telling someone, you don't need to do it to tell other people, but just to do it, it gives you the best feeling in the world to be able to help somebody, and you don't want anything from them, nor do you have the need to tell anybody. Is such a gift to self. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's how
Hmm.
we grow. It's how we contain more light.
Hmm. Well, we are almost out of time. So where can people
Oh,
find you, your books? Please promise me you'll come back. I'm going to stay in touch with you on
oh,
Facebook too,
you.
because I just adore you.
Aw, you were so loving to say that.
Oh, thank
They can
you.
find my books on Amazon. They can find them on barnesandnoble.com, or Barnes and Noble store can order it. Wherever, big bookstores, they can get it. But Amazon's probably the easiest, or barnesandnoble.com. Thank
Okay.
you so much for having me. Thank you to all your listeners. Thank you for sharing your listeners with me. Um, just
Well,
know,
I'm going to have you back because I know I've got a million other. I don't usually have an interview. If you really want to know what I do with my show, is right before I say, "Okay, Spirit, where are we going with this?" And it just goes
do.
where it's meant to go.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the way to do it. Just everybody, me and Laura Lee and everybody, just know that you are loved. We are loved.
You're
We are
right.
divine beings. We are God too, as is everything on the earth.
I agree with you.
So,
Well, I want to send everybody so much love and light. But before I let you go, if you want to get a hold of me, you can find me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. I also have two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal. And then the Angel Rocker Tribe deals with many of the things we've talked about tonight and much more. And we do a lot of teaching in those groups. We've got some great people from all over the world there. So please be sure to check them out on Facebook. We'd love to have you join. I will be back tomorrow night with my partner in crime, I hope, my PIC, as I call her, Seraphine Hurley, and we'll be back with Tripping the Void tomorrow night at 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if by whatever means she may not be able to be here, she's been having a few health issues, I will be here. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night, and have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, or afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you. Thanks.